Hello and welcome to IMHO. Today I'm talking to Lily Ray, who probably needs a little introduction as the prolific speaker and contributor to the industry that she is. For anybody who doesn't know, Lily is Vice President of SEO and Strategy at AMSIV. And Lily is best known for her work deconstructing updates and her contributions across social media and being an advocate for EEAT. At Brighton SEO recently, Lily gave a talk about the SEO life cycles, lessons from the past, and strategies for the future. So, in your talk at Brighton, you go through reviewing the apocalypse that SEO has been in the last, 10 years. I mean, you did talk about some of the history of SEO, but specifically about the apocalypse that we've seen. And then you talk about who is actually still winning in 2025, which is really interesting. And probably it's mostly a lot of big brands. So please, could you tell me about, who is winning and what you think are the common traits amongst these sites?
Yeah, I think so. In my presentation, I included a list of many different winners according to Systrix visibility for the last 2 years, and I broke them down into categories. So I found the categories user-generated content and social media sites. So lots of the social sites like Instagram, TikTok, Quora, Reddit, health and medical authorities. So really trusted publishers that write about health and medical topics, and trusted institutions like the Cleveland Clinic and NHS and NIH. E-commerce and marketplaces have seen a lot of visibility increases in Google. So, Nike, eBay, Home Depot, Amazon, of course, media and entertainment sites. So Bandcamp, Netflix, Spotify, a lot of sites that are providing just like tools and media that consumers love. Travel, hotels, and marketplaces. So Rick Steves, Marriott, TripAdvisor. What a lot of these sites have in common is they do have a lot of user-generated content. A lot of people talking about different aspects of travel and recommending travel tips for other people searching for them. And then SaaS tech and software. So of course we have OpenAI, which is a new player, but then we have other tech companies like Adobe and Wise, who have some really good examples of how to do like programmatic SEO and scaling content effectively. So many different brands, but I would say what a lot of them have in common is, again, like a lot of brand awareness, a lot of user-generated content that's found to be very trustworthy, great EEAT, especially for your money, your life topics, and then just a lot of like real-world experience and real authentic reviews.
So, I mean, obviously search has been changing quite a lot recently. And obviously before we move on, I mean, where do you think where do you think we really are right now and where we might go in the next, well, particularly towards the end of this year?
Well, on the SEO side, as far as like rankings, in Google and the other search engines, I would say Google in particular has made some really dramatic changes to how it ranks results in the last couple of years, where a lot of previously successful SEO tactics have been basically nullified. A lot of the things that people were doing to drive a lot of traffic have been, met with algorithm updates and new spam policies and penalties where it's not so easy to drive traffic with those approaches anymore. And Google is really now rewarding like what I call like authentic SEO, which is essentially just like legitimate, personal branding and marketing where you're providing something really valuable for your users without trying to take shortcuts and basically create spam. So that's what's happening on the ranking side, which has really fundamentally changed the types of companies that are able to compete for visibility. But of course, the other big change is just what's happening with AI, which changes daily. Google has, launched AI overviews publicly last year, and now they're really kind of tapping more into AI mode. I believe that they will probably integrate AI mode directly into the search results, maybe by the end of 2025. We'll see. But those two changes in tandem are dramatically changing the name of the game for SEO professionals.
I picked up something that you wrote recently on LinkedIn, and I'm just going to quote. It says, "It turns out that posting frequently on social media sites is a great way to be cited in LLMs. You can use LLMs to summarize what someone said about a given topic, find all the instances of them talking about specific topics, and learn how they feel about topics." So, everybody thought social media was dead a few years ago. And yet, here we are with seeing this big resurgence to quite a dominant position where it's now significantly influencing discovery. What's your theory for the influence and integration of social media in SEO? And how do you think that might play out in the next year or two?
Yeah, I actually think this is kind of these changes and these developments are on the same trajectory as something that I've been speaking and writing about for a long time, which is that I think consumers and searchers and internet users generally like to follow real people, which is a trend that we're seeing, with TikTok and Instagram influencers and YouTube influencers and things like this. So it's not surprising to me that search engines are rewarding more of that type of content because they know that their searchers want to see real people talking about real things, like when it comes to product reviews, they want to see that a real person was involved in testing the products. When it comes to travel reviews, they want to hear from real travel bloggers and people who have been to those places. So this is just an extension of that. But it is interesting to me that the large language models and Google's AI, large language models as well as like AI mode and AI overviews, they're really surfacing a lot of that content very quickly. So like if you are, let's say, an entity or a person or an influencer or something that they have pretty good like confidence that they know who you are and they know which social profiles you manage. If you say something on X or on Blue Sky or on Threads or on LinkedIn or on Facebook, if it's publicly available on Facebook, you can see the large language models like citing that information really quickly. So if I have something that I posted on LinkedIn 2 hours ago and there's a bunch of comments on it, you can ask Google's AI mode, what does Lily think about this and what do other people think about it? And it will literally cite those comments and what I said just 2 hours ago. So that's a really interesting development that makes me feel like we should focus even more on elevating the real people and experts that work at our companies and ensuring that they are sharing opinions publicly over time.
I picked up something else that you mentioned. This was quite interesting. And obviously, digital PR, I think the last 12 months I've heard quite a lot in the industry that digital PR is probably going to be more important due to, in line with what you've just been saying, that the placement of brand mentions on media sites is going to become more important to getting cited in LLMs. And I picked up this comment that you wrote on LinkedIn recently that your prediction is, and I quote, websites frequently cited in LLMs will start receiving even more bribes, if they haven't already, to mention certain brands' products in their articles. Do you think we're about to see this whole new level of like link spam?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think first of all, this is going to lead to a whole other level of spam and backdoor deals. People like, I think I'm looking at a lot of new tools for monitoring visibility in large language models. And what the tools do really well is mention which articles are being cited the most in certain categories or for certain prompts, within large language models. And then if you think about how to manage that as an SEO or a marketing professional, if you're typing best credit cards into ChatGPT and it's always referencing Forbes or it's always referencing NerdWallet or Investopedia or whatever it is, as a business, your main objective is going to be wanting to be mentioned in those articles. And how does that usually work? I mean, I'm not naming names, but there's a lot of big players out there who do take, I don't want to say bribes, but payments to be listed in those lists, whether that's transparent or not on the page. So I just see that as a logical extension of where this is all going. I imagine a lot of publishers are going to be incentivized to basically sell placements on those articles. And that creates a new challenge for search engines. I mean, this was essentially what Google tried to do with site reputation abuse, is to, demote those types of approaches. But a lot of this stuff happens outside of the public eye. So I do think that's going to be a new challenge. And I think it's going to be, consumers are not going to love that. They're going to want to really find, information that feels objective and it feels truthful and authentic. So we'll see how they manage that problem because that's going to be a new challenge for sure.
Yeah, I mean, can you actually foresee any way that they could possibly tackle that? I mean, links, well, they've tried for 25 years to stamp down on links and they're still not 100% successful. I mean, how can you possibly start to tackle brand mention link spam? And that's because that's everything Google's been trying to encourage.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I feel like these are the types of challenges that search engines and Google have, they put so many resources towards trying to reverse engineer, things that feel inauthentic and spammy. And, at this point, they even have like a form that users can fill out to tell them about examples of site reputation abuse that are happening behind the scenes. There's people that create X accounts to like publicly call out companies that are engaged in these types of practices, which is not the most scalable, having Google's web spam team like manually go in and review these different implementations. But I think, in my opinion, like authenticity and truthfulness usually speaks for itself over time. People are usually able to feel when something is legitimate. Like for me personally, I know some people don't agree with me, but I feel like the New York Times Wirecutter is a really good gold standard of like how to do product reviews. So I don't know. I think that'll be increasingly challenging, but the reality of the situation is users gravitate towards content that they feel is truthful and authentic. And that usually comes from real human beings sharing real honest reviews and opinions of things. So we'll see how they adapt to that, but that's definitely going to be probably, I think, the biggest challenge that they face in the coming years.
Yeah, I mean, it might be interesting in a year or two. We might not even care what Google thinks anymore anyway if LLMs take over. And on that basis, with with this influence of well, now we've got this quite an influence of in the SERPs forums, social media. We've now got the introduction of Discover potentially into desktop. Google SERPs are in themselves becoming personalized recommendation engines. And then you look at TikTok is for reviews and research, and the LLMs are like assistants to help you plan and pull information. Out of all these channels, do you think we should be picking one that we should favor, or do you think we actually need to straddle them all?
I think straddling them all is pretty wise right now, just because everything's so fluid and changing all the time. And a lot of the times, like the same approach, like if you're taking that one approach and basically diversifying where your content appears, you will be more likely to show up across different platforms. So I always recommend like take a piece of content and repurpose it in many different ways. So like I did a survey for my recent Brighton SEO presentation that we made into a blog post. It had infographics. We also had me speaking about it. We spliced up those videos and put them on different social media platforms as both long and short form videos. Now I'm speaking to you about it on a podcast. And I did a conference presentation about it that can become conference slides. Like there's so many different ways that you can take a piece of content and just put it on different platforms. But especially looking at like where are the platforms that my audience spends the most time. I use like SparkToro and BuzzSumo for that. And you can see, oh, they like these subreddits, they like these podcasts and these YouTube channels, and just kind of making sure that you're creating content for the places that your audience spends its time.
In your talk at Brighton, you also said that SEO is no longer just about ranking and traffic, and becoming a recognized, trusted entity in Google's knowledge graph and having a strong branded and authentic social media presence is critical. SEO has changed dramatically. And so, in your humble opinion, do you think SEO has now fundamentally changed from being a technical based manipulation to just actual brand marketing?
I think it's both. Like I think, I don't think that you have one without the other. So like, for example, at my team at AMSIV, we have 6 people, 6 or more people that are dedicated to doing just tech SEO all day, every day. And they are very busy. Like we have clients that have all kinds of technical challenges that prevent them from being visible, not only in search results, but now, of course, we're thinking about large language model visibility as well. Like I know that some of these tools have limitations with JavaScript rendering and everything. So the two work together in tandem. I think that for using tech SEO, you need to be able to be visible and crawled and indexed quickly in search engines and large language models. But then, yeah, of course, I do think this is going in a direction where, like, assuming that you've checked the boxes with tech SEO, you are being discovered and you are being crawled, and there's very few limitations to your website and your content being accessible and crawled quickly. I think that that's where it really starts to become like it's more PR. So how many times are we seeing this brand or this person or this entity mentioned across trusted platforms as the great, XYZ, the best whatever XYZ thing that they're going after? That's going to become more important. And I know people are looking for lots of ways to fake that, but I do anticipate that's going to be harder and harder to fake. I think that these tools will get smarter about how they're evaluating, what are the best products and services and people. So it's a combination of both. It's much like SEO that we've been doing for a very long time. I mentioned that I have 6 people doing tech SEO on the AMSIV SEO team, but then we have you know 30 others that are really a lot more focused on like content and strategy and PR. So it's a combination of both, like it always has been.
I mean, just as one last comment, Lily, what do you think if you were to say, one single thing for people to be really focusing on right now, where do you think people should be looking at?
I think, like we just talked about, like diversification of content is key right now, as well as, not every company loves this approach, and not every company has people who feel comfortable kind of marketing themselves. But unfortunately, I think that's the direction that things are going. So, like, I've always advocated, looking for like having an evangelist or multiple evangelists on your staff that represent the brand. It's kind of a new way of thinking about it, but having real people associated with brands and companies, like I think we have a lot of this in the SEO space, where there's like thought leaders who represent the agency that they work for or the company that they work for. Like think about Wix, for example.
Yeah,
Wix didn't have a lot of visibility or a great reputation in the SEO space, I would say, until a few years ago when
yeah.
they hired a lot of well-known and trustworthy and authoritative SEO professionals, and now they've totally transformed their reputation. So I think thinking about those real people that you feel comfortable like representing the brand, and then doing as much as possible to have those real people market themselves with thought leadership, with speaking at events, with being on podcasts and interviews and YouTube videos and everything like this. I think that's really the direction that brand marketing is actually going to go in the future.
Yeah, I think that might actually be a challenge for a lot of SEOs. I mean, it's been a long way from sitting in your bedroom buying links. And I just wonder how many SEOs are actually going to be able to survive this change in the next few years.
I think it's a welcome change, to be honest. I'm sorry to say, but SEO has always had a mix of people who are trying to play the long game and do things right from a marketing and branding perspective, and really working hard to get that visibility. And then, of course, people who are looking for shortcuts and looking for ways to exploit whatever current algorithms are in place. And there's always been those exploits, but search engines almost always catch on to them. So I personally feel like it's a waste of time, unless you're churning and burning through different sites to try to make money as quickly as possible and you're comfortable losing everything you built, of course, you go for it. But for those of us that are working on, enterprise brands and companies who can't afford to take those risks, it's actually a fun and exciting time. It's not as easy as it used to be. It used to be much more easy to manipulate, but doing this hard work, I find, is much more rewarding and pays for itself much more.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And for me, it's something that I've been waiting coming for many, many years because it just falls right into my skill set. So I'm really happy about that.
For sure.
Lily, it's been fantastic to speak to you. And thank you very much for sharing your humble opinion with me. Fantastic. It's been great to speak to you. Thank you very much, Lily.
Thanks for having me.